Perfectly well, it's vicarious.
Yes.
They know the score of their own lives. They know they have 3 part-time jobs. You know, they know they're desperately worried about their eldest grandchild and their youngest child. They know that this is not a bed of roses. But there's no reason why you can't have a little holiday from those anxieties.
A publisher of Mills and Boon said, "Oh yeah, well the thing about Mills and Boon, it's better than Valium."
Oh, I think that's marvellous. Yes, I mean, I think it transports you and it calms you down, and you don't have to think about your own life while you're in someone else's life. And I mean, you know, if you're writing these books, it's a huge extension of that. I don't really think about my life for the whole of the time I'm writing the book. So for about, you know, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 hours a day, I'm living in this other marvellous world where things go wrong but things go right, and everyone's sort of wittier than they are in real life and kind of good looking. And it is my fix. I need it.
On a busy day in the office, I too could do with some kind of fix. Like many women, I juggle a busy job with all the demands of family life. Some days, it all gets too much. If romantic fiction really is better than Valium, I want to know more. At Westminster University, research is being done into the stress-regulating hormone cortisol. We decided to do an experiment to see whether reading a romantic novel can affect your cortisol levels for the better. I was asked to provide a saliva sample and fill in a questionnaire at either end of an hour on 2 consecutive days. On the first day, I went back to my busy life during the hour. On the second day, I sat down with a romantic novel.
Little opportunity to converse. "My daughter-in-law is shy," said Lady Marlowe, with a look at Phoebe which promised signal vengeance presently. It occurred to Sylvester that after her first start of surprise, Phoebe had not appeared to be at all shy. He remembered that Lady Ingham had said she was not just in the ordinary style, and wondered if there might be something more in her than he had as yet detected. Since she was making no effort to engage his interest, he concluded that she did not know.
At the end of an extremely pleasurable hour, I had to repeat the saliva test and the questionnaire before going back to work.
At the moment in the 1930s, when certain forms of drug became readily available that would send people to sleep, there was huge publicity in the American newspapers for the new kind of sleeping pills that worked so effectively. And at the moment that these sleeping pills were being so widely used, the sales for romantic fiction dropped. There was a correlation then between the artificial way of falling asleep provided by the sleeping pills and the artificial form of falling asleep provided by the books. If you had the pills, you didn't need the books. It's a way of falling asleep in the same way that children like to be told the same story again and again and again as their bedtime story to send them to sleep.
So I've chewed on my bits of cotton wool and I've filled in my questionnaires. Now I'm really intrigued to see whether reading romantic fiction is actually going to make me a more well-adjusted person.
And as you can see, we put it into the centrifuge to spin down. Here's your nice clean saliva at the bottom.
Wow.
And we can use
lots of it.
And for each sample, we simply use one of our little volume extracting devices and put it into an ELISA. That's a chemical assay which will determine levels of the cortisol in here.
Oh, OK. Cool.
And this is an ELISA plate.
Yeah.
And what will happen is there's a chemical reaction binding to antibodies in that plate, which is colour sensitive. So the more cortisol there is in your tube, in your saliva, the less colour we're going to get in this plate.
Right.
And we have a computer that can translate those colour codes into concentrations.
I really hope this test does prove that romantic fiction reduces my cortisol. I'd love an excuse to give up knitting. Cortisol is one of the main regulators of the immune system. When you are stressed, your cortisol levels go up, and if they remain high for long periods, then your health will be affected. Sufferers of diseases from AIDS to cancer all show irregular cortisol levels. It's really important that during the day, even if you have stressful moments, your cortisol levels have time to settle down. Up until recently, research has focused on what makes cortisol and stress levels go up. Our experiment was one of the very few that had been done to look at what reduces cortisol, and it was certainly the first in this country to examine the effects of reading romantic fiction on cortisol levels. Arguably, reading romantic novels should reduce stress levels because of their reassuring nature. Reading another kind of novel like The Da Vinci Code could be just too exciting.
We've got the results, Daisy, yeah. OK, we've got two types of results, haven't we? We've got what you reported yourself.
Yes, I found that quite tricky. Was I distressed? And there are all these different adjectives like bothered, apprehensive, sluggish, relaxed, somnolent. So I did my best.
I know. What you're supposed to do is not think about how you feel listening, just say how you feel immediately, the first thing that comes into your head.
Right.
And on average, people would report about 7 or 8 stress score, score 7 or 8 on this. And you were reporting about 17, which is very high. I mean, the maximum score is 19, so you're nearly off the scale there. But then, and I'm not sure, this is a bit suspicious, I have to say, your stress levels went down to absolutely 0, which is unusual, I have to say.
That is unusual,
so there might be what we call in the trade a bit of a demand characteristic going on here. But you were sort of trying to fulfil, expectations. But it doesn't matter whether that's true, because we've got categorical proof about whether or not this was true or not, because we've got your stress hormone levels.
Oh, well, that's much more interesting.
And here are your cortisol levels on the day you weren't reading. And they've gone up about 30% over the course of that period.
30%?
Yes. But the good news is, on the day that you were reading, you actually had lower levels of cortisol over the day, and there was about a 20% reduction by the time you'd finished reading your book. So there's quantifiable evidence that it did make a difference.
Well, I know I was considerably less stressed because I actually fell asleep.
Oh, right. Because
that would suggest that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised actually, because your arousal levels did go plummeting as well as your stress levels, so that's slightly. So perhaps you weren't that excited by your book.
Well, it was very good. It was just it relaxed me to the extent. Yes, and I also find that really that kind of book is my trigger to go to sleep.
Oh, I see. So, good to read at night then.
Gosh, well, thank you very, very much.
It's been a pleasure.
I will now have my medical sort of excuse to read as much romantic fiction as I like in the middle of the working day.
So I might follow suit.
So, my cortisol levels were down by a whopping 20%. Reading Georgette Hare really is the ultimate chill pill. If romantic fiction is such a panacea, how do the pushers package their fix to hook as many people as possible?
You should absolutely judge a book by its cover in this market. The title, the packaging, the artistic approach, absolutely key to capture the reader and audience. And to actually stand out on the bookshelves, it's such a crowded market that the packaging is absolutely crucial.
Do you think, as much time discussing the cover and the title as you do reading, editing the copy?
If not more. It's such a crucial area and everybody has their 2 penneth on it. Sales, marketing and publicity. We all get into the mix and see what's working at the moment, what's out there, what we can be